everybody. It's Brain Tech Support Live. Just hearing some bells go off in the distance, letting everybody know that it's morning. It's time for Brain Tech Support Live. I hope everybody, we got some chairs over here, so I hope everybody can grab a seat, gather around. Of course, if this is your first time attending Brain Tech Support Live, this is where we bring our thought appliances, which are known to have, kind of a bunch of issues straight out of the factory. The thing is, that's how they're designed. So we get together to share tips and skills on how to handle the reality of having a human thought appliance. If you have any questions about your journey navigating, mental illness and the kinds of things that brains can throw up, feel free to share them here. We focus on learning how to handle the thoughts and images and voices and feelings and physical sensations that the brain can throw up while doing the things that we care about in life and taking ourselves where we want to go while making space for that stuff. Over on the Mental Fitness Discord server, there was a question that I saw popped up this morning, and I thought it would be interesting to share because I'd be curious about everybody else, like what's your take on this question, or what you'd want to share about this question, because I'll read you the question that one of our members posted. They said, what seeming paradoxes have been most useful in progress to try to wrap your head around? And then they explained, it feels to me like building better mental health can often feel like accepting a series of confusing paradoxes. Well, at least at first they seem like paradoxes because they're often so counter to your habitual modes of acting. I don't know, if anybody out there, if you want to share, in the chat or in the comments later, what are mental health paradoxes that have been really useful for you to understand? Because these are things, I like to call them brain physics, right? Like a great example is how chasing a feeling naturally leads to the opposite of that feeling. And we see that, very, classically or stereotypically when somebody is trying to get a feeling of being clean. Because of course, the more somebody tries to feel clean and get rid of contamination feelings, what do they get? They feel more contaminated. It's the same with depersonalization and derealization. The more somebody does stuff to try to chase that feeling of being real, the more they're going to feel unreal, the more they're going to feel depersonalized. Because all of that checking and controlling and judging sensations just naturally leads to the opposite. And so it is this weird paradox to say, actually, if we stop chasing that thing we're chasing, we actually may experience it. It'd be okay if we didn't, though, of course, too. Everybody, good morning. Hello. Sachin, no tomorrow. Erica, good morning. Stefan, hello. Abhishek, how's it going? Yeah, Stefan, that's a great paradox. Mentioned that the thoughts aren't bothering you, you are bothering it. Probably one of the most useful things I've heard. Yeah, it's, again, a great one. We're always like, oh no, how do I get, this thing is attacking me. But then we realize, oh no, I'm the one judging it and checking it. And like the moment it appears in the room, I'm like staring at it and be like, what's it gonna do? We're the ones that do the things to the thoughts. Morrow, good morning. Oh, Erica, this is a great one you brought up, and actually that'd be a great one to add to the discussion there, because you mentioned, so far we've been talking about kind of mental health paradoxes that have been useful. But one of the really important paradoxes to understand is that compulsions, like as you said here, compulsions make you feel better until they don't. I think that's always one of the biggest challenges when people are first starting to work, let's say, on their mental health, because there's so much evidence of times when we saw the compulsions as useful. And I know, when I first started, I always saw my compulsions as useful and necessary. But when I first started to work on things, it was very challenging to say, oh, like all of these things that I thought were helping me have actually been taking me into this position or state or experience where things are very, very bad. And that's, yeah, always the case. Elena, good morning. Sashi said, it is difficult to keep on walking, as I mentioned in the thoughts versus thinking video. And so, Sashi, there, what I'd say, like, what's making it difficult? What is, and what would support you in going in that direction? But also, seeing, like, it will be difficult. That's why I call it mental fitness. So, like, we have this idea, or we understand in physical fitness that if you want to build a skill, it's going to be sweaty and difficult, and the difficulty is not a bad thing. That's like, who actually will probably measure the quality of the workout by quite often how we failed. And it's quite normal in a physical fitness, say a weightlifting workout, to fail, and we'd see that as good. But then so often in mental health, we're like, oh, I couldn't do the exercise. What's that mean? Or how do I fix that? But no, like, you tried to do the exercise and yeah, you dropped the weights. That's great. Try it again. It's through those attempts to do it that we get better and better at it. Maria, good morning. Kanye. Oh, I'm glad my Instagram channel has been, helpful. I mean, it's great that you're going to therapy too. Yeah, these resources, the YouTube channel, the Instagram channel, all of that stuff. Yeah, my book, like, they're there to, yeah, ideally help fill in gaps in and that, skills that aren't covered but are useful in traditional mental health services, or people can't access those at all. And then you asked, why is someone else's opinion more important to me than my own? I'm constantly worrying if I said something wrong or misbehaved and others don't like or judge me because of it. That question you asked, that's a great question to ask yourself. Because yeah, I always ask people, if something like that comes up, I might ask, yeah, why is it more important? But then also looking at what is the bad thing that's going to happen that you're trying to prevent? Because there's always two things I like to look at there. One, how do we start to give ourselves the things we're looking for from other people? Because so often we are looking for some kind of validation or importance or love, kindness, whatever, reassurance from other people. Meanwhile, we're being so mean and critical of ourselves. So it's natural we're looking for that from other people because we don't give it to ourselves. So yeah, look at one thing. Yeah, what if you gave to yourself the things you're looking for from other people, but then also looking at the fear, like, what is it we're trying to control by getting reassurance that people like us, or by chasing the opinions of others? Because then, yeah, often there's different ways of interacting with that uncertainty. Stefan, yeah, he said, what has been your favorite location in the world you've been in? If you can't narrow it down to one, give us top three. Yeah, I don't have one, because there's so many amazing places in the world. The worlds are really, like, as far as worlds go and planets, this is definitely like a top 10 planet, a top 5 world for sure. And there's so many amazing places around it. And so I don't have a good name for it yet, but I have this way of thinking of, like, there are these kind of special places in the world that I find are kind of very similar and really enjoyable places that have some shared characteristics. And so right now, I think like 3, yeah, maybe I'd go 4. Yeah, maybe, so if I had to pick 3, I would say Kyoto, Japan, Cusco, Peru, and Oaxaca, Mexico. But actually, I'd say there's other places that are like those 3, and they are, yeah, these kind of special places that have embraced, I guess if I was looking at the qualities that they embrace, it's nature, indigenous culture, food, like they have good food, they have a great food culture. Um, yeah, and like art, but yeah, kind of wrapped up in, yeah, actually I would separate that a bit from the culture. Yeah, so they have a very long culture, excellent food culture, really embrace nature, and then there's a lot of art around. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of places like that in the world. Yeah. Kind of, yeah. See, you continue, yeah, the checking WhatsApp messages and then questioning if you did something wrong. So that'll be a great compulsion to cut out. One thing that's important to recognize with compulsions is that they fuel the uncertainty. So it may feel like, oh, I'm checking the WhatsApp messages because I'm uncertain what people think about me, but actually it's that checking of the WhatsApp messages, checking for eye contact, replaying conversations in our heads, all of those kinds of things that tell the brain not to trust us, but that also elevate the importance of other people's opinions because we're basically teaching the brain. It's very much like teaching a dog, where like if you constantly check something in front of a dog, the dog is also going to want to check it, and the brain is the same, and so it is going to involve you cutting out the compulsions because as long as you keep doing all of that checking, the brain is going to keep like very logically saying, oh, well, I guess other people's opinions are really important because this guy spends all this time checking them. S said, since recovering, would you say you've been able to transition from living in your head to inhabiting your body? Even when I have periods of no OCD behaviors, I still feel overly cerebral and neurotic. Yeah, so I would, like, I wouldn't, so I would approach mental health as kind of, I don't know how to describe it, a big mess. What's a soup? Yeah, mental health is a soup. And so I wouldn't look at, oh, like I'm not doing OCD behaviors. Why am I being neurotic? But I would look at more as like, if we just look at how you want to practice mental health and fitness skills, do you want to spend less time in your head? Because that's a thing you can do. I wouldn't necessarily see it as spending more time in my body necessarily. I would say definitely, we were talking about this on the mental fitness Discord the other day. Definitely, I enjoy practices now, like being able to work out. The place where I'm staying right now has a yoga mat, so I really enjoy doing yoga and being present in my body, like when I'm noticing how my hand is on the mat or something like that. Whereas in the past, if I was doing yoga, I would be having a conversation in my head about something that happened 5 days ago that I was upset about. So absolutely, but I would say that's not a thing that happens to me. That's a thing I'm choosing to do. I'm gonna, and very intentionally, hey, I'm gonna do yoga now. I want to notice my body and say hello to it. Something I also like to practice in meditation. Actually, a meditation practice that I love is just going around and saying hello to body parts and thanking them for being there. But I would also say what I pay a lot of attention to is just what I call time spent in head. So, because if we're spending a lot of time up here, again, it's just a practice. We're going to get good at it. We're teaching the brain that, hey, what matters is like, what are we thinking about? So I would say I practice. It's not just a thing that happens, but I practice being in the real world here. And so sometimes that's my body. Sometimes I don't know if you can hear it. There's a bell, a church bell chiming. Yeah, it's noticing what's happening in the environment. It's seeing what's around me and seeing it as it is, not filtering it through a bunch of judgments in my head. So yeah, I would start to look at that. So even if set aside like labels like OCD and neurotic, just like how do you want to spend your time and energy in life? If you want to spend more time outside of your head, that's a thing you can do. Moro said, when I take supplements like vitamin D and creatine, I look up studies and look for negative stories from people taking them and then quit taking them myself. Would it be best to cut out this research? Well, you might even be wrapped up in a bunch of uh, different things there because so for example, if we approach something like vitamin D, creatine, etc. So like creatine is a great example actually. Uh, so if I'm oh I've got to get this creatine because I've got to like look bigger, so like people think things about me. We're already wrapped up in the compulsions, right? We're trying to like control some bad thing, right? I don't want people to think I'm whatever. Uh, so then the brain just goes, oh, are we doing the thing where we control bad things? Oh, okay, because I can think of other bad things that would happen, and it'll just run off and be like, oh, well, if you control that bad thing, you've got to control this bad thing. What if you're taking something that's bad for you? And then it just runs like that. And so exploring how we might if we want to take supplements, how to do that in a way that's supporting us, supporting something we want to do, like supporting an action versus trying to control a fear of a bad thing. Because if it's about trying to control a fear of a bad thing, that's very natural. The brain will want to control more fears about bad things. Abhishek, you said, how long does anxiety stay while doing ERP? Well, it wouldn't matter because anxiety is a fun, natural human emotion. And if you were doing ERP to get rid of anxiety, well, that would just be what the compulsions are all about. So I would instead have the focus on actions. It's not about controlling or avoiding some feeling. I want to cut out compulsions because I want to spend my time and energy doing things that actually matter to me in life. And so I'm going to do them. And if there's anxiety there, will I do that? That's fine. Wouter, he said, the only thing throwing me back in OCD behaviors is physical symptoms. I'm trying to get over fear of symptoms by feeling them. But what can I do more? I guess I would ask, like, do more for what? And do you have to get over the fear? Because quickly it can, if we're like, oh, I shouldn't be afraid. Well, no, like maybe you'll be afraid. There's nothing wrong with that. You can have fear and do things that you want to do. Like the fear is no barrier to that. But if we judge it as like, oh, fear shouldn't be here, or I need to get over the fear, then yeah, the brain's probably going to keep on throwing the fear up. Google user said, my boyfriend broke up with me and I'm having excessive thoughts about the breakup. Best thing to help this. Uh, well, I would like when you say best thing to help this. Yeah, you just had a difficult experience. Maybe something you don't control. I don't know that much about the scenario, but quite often when we experience things in life that we don't control, our brains react to that by trying to chase control, trying to search for control. And sometimes that'll be like repeating things over and over again, throwing up intrusive thoughts, maybe even about something else, but just because the brain's trying to like get control over something in a situation where we feel pain and uncertainty. And so I find it's not about right, like trying to get rid of that. In some ways, the brain is having, let's say, like a mental response that's very similar to an immune response. Right? There's a bad thing, and the body's gonna protect you from it. It doesn't do it in a way that's helpful, just as like swelling and inflammation often isn't helpful, but it's how the body reacts. And here you see your body reacting to uncertainty and a difficult experience. And so I find in these scenarios, one is, yeah, we don't have to get caught up in it, that actually that compassion and understanding to see, uh, and I was making the motion of giving a hug because it is like that. It's like seeing like, oh, okay, there's some pain here. And of course I'm trying to control it, trying to find some certainty and control in the situation. And I can give myself a hug and understand that. I don't have to get caught up in it and make it worse. But I don't have to make it go away. Like the brain going, yeah, oh, what about this? What about this? What about this? Being like, yeah, I get it, brain. You're upset and you're hurt. And I'm gonna give you love and understanding. Rusty said, I struggle with really bad religious OCD. I worry a lot that God's going to stop me from my goals or from doing the things I care about. What's your opinion? Well, I don't have an opinion on that. But why not go and do the things that you want to do, and do even bigger things and better things, and yeah, dare God to try to get in the way. Yeah, so actually, so Mordo, earlier you did what's called like giving reassurance. He said like creatine's not a problem, which is never going to be helpful if somebody has an anxiety. And then you can see, yeah, Moro came back with, but there are like a whole bunch of things that Moro had read about bad things happening with it. And so that's one of the reasons to not give reassurance, because it'll never be useful. The brain can always think of reasons like the exception to get around it. No tomorrow. He said, maybe this is a little bit off topic. Are you following the TV series Rings of Power? What do you think of the wave of hate that the project and cast are receiving? A lot of compulsions going on, in my opinion. Yeah, so I haven't watched the Rings of Power. I know all about the books. Like I've read the Silmarillion and the Unfinished Tales like many times. But yeah, like you said, like the like the online hate and racism, yeah, is just stupid. Like it's yeah, just blatant racism that many of the cast members have experienced, and is, yeah, really. And we've seen this a bunch of times right now with a bunch of different series, and it's so yeah, it's so unfortunate. Like a lot of racists, they don't have anything to do all day but sit and just be racist on the internet. Chris, so can you suggest any specific exercises to work on self-validation? I find that most of my mental health struggles start with wanting to be liked and accepted by others. What I would look at there, and this goes back, I don't know if you heard it before we were talking about giving to ourselves what we're looking for from other people. And so part of it would be that, like actually seeing, right, so like, because the exercise will be tied to whatever it is you're not doing because you feel you need to get, validation and essentially permission from other people first. And so starting to look at that. And so, yeah, two things. I would look at the actions. What actions do you want to do that, the brain is going to go, whoa, but like, what are other people going to think? Or what about, is that going to be okay? All of that kind of stuff. So identifying what those actions are. But then on the way, giving to yourself what you would have been looking for from other people in the past. Because so often we're essentially like a colleague of ours. And we're often terrible colleagues to ourselves, because you can imagine if you actually were working with somebody and they were always like looking at you, be like, did you do that right? That looks wrong. Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure you're gonna do that? And like every time, and they're like, hey, you should check that again. Just before you do that, or they're like, I don't think you're ready to do this. I don't think you're ready. Like maybe, I don't know, let's ask somebody else if you're ready to do this. And they were just constantly doing that all the time. Of course, we would have no trust in ourselves. But we do that all the time to ourselves. And so really looking at how you can be a good colleague to yourself. Just Jazz saying you're in Mexico too. You're near to Puerto Vallarta. Ah, my favorite food. Lately I have a combo that I've enjoyed multiple times. Like one of my favorite combinations. Like if I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go, have like I guess it feels like very like homey, comforting, cozy meal. Maybe is pozole. So I love pozole. So many different kinds of pozole, like such a good soup. So I have that a lot. But pozole and flautas. So you get like some flautas with some pozole, and like that's it's like such a filling meal, but like also so good. Like you've got the crunchy of the flautas, and like there's like, yeah, who know whatever's on top, and same with the pozole. Like you get like all of your mixings, and you've got like, yeah, your radishes and your lettuce, and like, oh, add some spice and some lime juice in there, some avocado. Yeah, pozole and flautas is my go-to right now. If I like arrive in a place and I'm like, oh, like I don't know where to eat yet, but I'll like consistently go and get like some pozole because it's like always good. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, Justin, do you have any recommendations? What do you really like? Erica said, I made a lot of progress with mental fitness, but there are still a few compulsions I'd like to stop and some actions I want to do, but can't seem to get myself to do. Any advice? Yeah, I mean, how like one of the things that I find to look at, like maybe even from a different angle when we want to work on this stuff, is to consider like how would I make this easy? Uh, because sometimes, yeah, we may actually say like, oh, actually, this thing I thought I should do, I needed to do, maybe I don't have to do it. And I want to give my time and energy to something else. But then also we say, look, if I want to do this thing and I keep not doing it, how do I make it as easy as possible? Because then our focus may actually switch to the supports. And I find it really helpful, especially now as my journey continues, to just focus on supports. Like a lot of what I do each day is only to make tomorrow's choices easier. That fly was like, it had a lot of questions, but it left. Johanny, you said, I'm a medical student. Oh, congratulations. And I've recently been considered specializing in psychiatry. However, I feel like the profession obsesses over controlling feelings, and I disagree with that. Thoughts? So depending on where you are, I would say like there's a lot happening in psychiatry. So you can definitely, if you want to pursue psychiatry, you can definitely connect with uh, other psychiatrists doing like really, I would say, really interesting, innovative work. At the same time, I know like sometimes that's quite new. Like I saw just the other day, so a psychiatrist I follow on Twitter shared about how they're part of starting up the first I don't know what's called, like an APA in the Association of Contextual and Behavioral Sciences. We call them special interest groups, and I think at the APA maybe they called it a working group, or maybe it's a special interest group, but it's on the social determinants of health. On one hand, that's really encouraging that there's a group of psychiatrists looking at, oh well, maybe some of these experiences are affected by things happening around people. At the same time, it's also, I think some people may be pretty shocked to learn that that is just starting this year. That like bringing empirical evidence to the fact that people are affected by things happening around them, poverty, racism, like we were talking about before, all sorts of systemic issues very much have a massive impact on people. And so, yeah, like there is a movement in that direction. You definitely can engage with that in psychiatry. At the same time, it is new, so you're gonna be, I don't know how to describe, like it won't necessarily be easy. Yeah, you definitely could show up in a meeting of other psychiatrists and they're like, what are you talking about? We're gonna there's a feeling, let's get rid of it. How do we get rid of these thoughts? And so, yeah, so it's definitely a field that's constantly in change. So yeah, it'd be up to, yeah, what you want to pursue and explore in your professional career. Kanye, thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate the little animation. Thank you. thinking about, because also there's sometimes the discussion in the mental health world online can seem very split, polarized, contentious, and I find so the approach that I take, because sometimes there'll be assumptions about where I'll sit on certain discussions and things like that. But I take, and you probably, if you're new to this, you've heard me mention a couple times today, a mental fitness approach, or we could just say a fitness approach. So I approach mental health like physical fitness. So that doesn't mean we say there's nothing biological there. Actually, just like with physical fitness, of course we're working with biology, but we look at how to work with what it's doing. So for instance, speaking of creatine, yeah, if I have, we'd say a fast metabolism. So if and also I'm big, I'm like quite tall. So if I want to gain muscle, I have to eat a lot. And so we don't just say, oh, like I can't do it or something like that, or like that's just, oh, my body does this thing. Oh no, I can't reach that goal or whatever. No, it's about saying, okay, this is how my body functions. What am I going to change to move towards that goal? Whereas, yeah, somebody else may be able to get to that goal more quickly or not have to do the same things that I would have to do. And then, so same with mental health, right? I have a brain, and so much of what we talk about is learning the physics of my brain. So I know with my brain, as I would say with anybody's brain, if they're trying to get rid of a thought, the brain's going to give them more of that thought, or it's going to give them other thoughts to get rid of. And absolutely, the reason the brain's bringing up those thoughts could be something environmental. Like we were talking there about the breakup. Maybe there's some huge uncertainty around somebody, like the economy has tanked and their business is going to close and they're going to be in a lot of debt, right? Big uncertainty. And so what is the brain going to do? It's going to look for something to control. And then they have the choice. Do I start to do a bunch of compulsions around the stuff my brain is throwing up? Or do I choose to do something that's more useful, recognizing that my brain is only throwing up these intrusive thoughts and this anxiety and these panic attacks right now because it's very naturally, as a brain does, trying to give me some control around this uncertainty over here in my environment. And so, yeah, it's really looking at all the elements, just like we would with physical fitness. So I take a mental fitness approach. I think one of the elements too that was so useful with mental health that comes from that physical fitness kind of mental fitness approach too was making space for time, and then making the practice the goal. And so this is again why it's so useful to shift the focus to actions that we control. Because just like with physical fitness, when we're working on mental fitness, we're changing, we're changing habits, we're changing practices, we're changing capacities. We're also changing our brains, we're changing our bodies, and that takes time. Right? We would never expect to instantly have some like physical fitness goal achieved. We went like, oh well, I went to the gym like 3 days last week. Like why can't I lift a 500-pound deadlift? Like I was at 100 pounds before, now I'm only at 110. And we recognize that building these things takes time and creating change. Because also as we do that, we work on things like mobility and flexibility. And it's the same with mental fitness, right? So much of acceptance and commitment therapy is about psychological flexibility. And your psychological flexibility does not change any faster than your physical flexibility. So we have to make space for taking that time and going on that journey and consistently practicing the actions and making those actions the goal. So saying, look, I'm going to go to the gym, whatever it is, 4 times a week, and I'm going to do these difficult things. And then in our own lives, looking at what are those weights we want to lift? What are those areas where we want to become more flexible? And then doing that consistently. I wonder, I've just noticed that there are no new questions in the chat. Now, is that because YouTube's done something? That is a bit unusual. Is that because YouTube, somebody, if you can see this right now, post something in the chat. And if not, I'm gonna assume that like something has been dropped. I think I have internet. Yeah, anybody there, throw something in the chat. I wonder if something weird has happened with YouTube. I will embrace the uncertainty and admire the nature over there. If not, we might have to wrap things up. I don't know if there's a way I can get it back. I'm gonna play around with the chat here. Oh, there we go. Now it's starting to do stuff. Oh, Erica, thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate the support. Oh, there we go. There we go. There we go. There we go. Now I see it. I started playing around with the chat. I guess the chat disappeared. Oh, okay. Now I've got to read through all this. Okay. Yeah, the chat disappeared, but I flipped it over to super chat and then flipped it back and it appeared. Oh, okay, there's so many questions now. I appreciate it. I will get through them all. Arturo said, I try not to pay attention to my heartbeat. As you recommended me, the anxiety intensity have decreased, but I still feel the obsessions. I would like to have more skills to work. Any advice? Yeah, so I would say, can it be okay to have the obsessions? Wait, acceptance isn't, like one way to see acceptance that's really useful is like we accept the uncertainty. The brain's going, hey, what about this? And we're like, yeah, what about that? Brain's like, and so it's throwing up that stuff. Yeah, like what if your heart explodes? Be like, yeah, what if? Stefan said, I'll be in my car and my thoughts will come up like you are aware of your thoughts and you will be ruminating the entire time. I keep driving, but the ride is unbearable. What to do to mitigate this? Well, so they're very similar to what we're talking about. Why can't that be okay? They're like, all right, I'm aware of my thoughts and I'm gonna ruminate the entire time. Cool. And like grab a seat there, invite the ruminating monster to sit down and shotgun. Joe Panzer, hello. KF, could OCD be connected with childhood trauma? Sure, but it's like that's just one of the uncertainties. Like when I was talking there a moment ago, I mentioned the uncertainty of the economy tanking, for instance. Like a person can do OCD compulsions around uncertainty about their business. They can do OCD compulsions. Well, they could do compulsions. We don't have to call them OCD. They can do compulsions around childhood trauma. So it's I find it more useful to see that we'll develop a set of controlling behaviors around uncomfortable experiences. So some people's uncomfortable experiences are sure going to be childhood trauma, but somebody else's uncomfortable experience could be, oh no, my business is going to tank. They may actually have the exact same compulsions. Sal said, I have scrupulosity, moral OCD. I was watching these Go Vegan videos and now feel a lot of guilt for not being vegan because I don't agree with it all. But how do I stop feeling guilty? Oh, I wouldn't explore trying to stop having a feeling. Moral, yeah, can you discuss your opinion on moods? I do have opinions on moods. I feel a lot of anxiety stems from trying to improve my mood. Yeah, is good mood a unicorn for it? Yes, exactly. So I'm really critical of, there's a lot of mental health apps out there that have you track mood. And so critical of two things. One, it gets people into compulsions, but two, like just empirically, that's not a useful thing to track to understand somebody's mental health, because like Erica brought up earlier, doing compulsions feels great until it doesn't. And yeah, tracking, like checking mood, needing to have a good mood is just like any contamination compulsion. Like it's like asking somebody, do you feel clean? And of course, uh, that's not necessarily a good thing. Kimberly said, is a highlight reel an example of ruminating on things we like? What about fantasies? Yeah, what do you mean by a highlight reel? Like, is that something you mean like you're creating in your head? Yeah, I'd just bring it back to like how do we want to spend our time and energy in life? Because yeah, I would just point out if you like creating highlight reels in your head of experiences, just don't be surprised if the brain starts creating like terrible highlight reels of terrible experiences, because it just helped me to see like the brain doesn't get this differentiation that we like to make between good and bad, great experiences like good ruminating, and terrible. It's just seeing, oh, like you just engage with me. So I always say like treat it like a dog. So I say if we teach the dog to jump up on good things to jump up on, we can't be surprised if it jumps up on bad things to jump up on. Because it doesn't know what we're seeing as good and bad. It's just saying, oh, I can jump up on stuff. And then it will. Jopenzi said, worrying about whether your friends still like you, carrying out checking compulsions, asking for reassurance makes you less likely to be liked. Seems paradoxical to me. Well, no, exactly. So this is one of the other, if we talked about the kind of tragic paradoxes of mental health. Yeah, the checking for reassurance about bad things happening will create the bad things that you're terrified of. If you're constantly checking whether people like you and you're changing how you behave because you want to control people liking you, it's very likely that people will be annoyed, and yeah, they won't like you because they also don't know you, because you're just trying to be somebody that you're not. And so yeah, it's very natural that we often create the very things we're afraid of. KF, you said, would you suggest spiritually approach to OCD? I mean, such treatments as meditation and mindfulness. So I wouldn't see them as necessarily spiritual. I see them as very practical. You can explore meditation and mindfulness through a spiritual lens, through many different religions. But it's just practical. Like I always say, like meditation is no more spiritual than kneeling is spiritual, right? Yeah, if you say go to church or a temple, it's very likely you might kneel. That doesn't mean kneeling is inherently spiritual. Like meditation and mindfulness are just practical human exercises. So I would, yeah, like, and I wouldn't see them as treatments. I would say it's just very useful. Like mindfulness is the opposite of ruminating. It's useful for me to be present in reality rather than spinning wheels in my head. Oh, Joshi, now I got Joshi explaining about, yeah, Mexican food. That you like tamales and atole are great too. Yeah, I really like tamales. I'll often order tamales because um, they're so delicious, but then they're also so interesting. Like there's so many different ways of making tamales in like different cities and regions and everything. So I always like to try the tamales wherever I am in Mexico, because they're so delicious and interesting. Yeah, so to KF, as Kanye explains below, mindfulness and meditation helped me a lot, a lot, to recognize a thought as a thought and a feeling as a feeling. And Low 27 wishing everybody a happy Sunday. Thank you. He said, by the way, I'm curious, what do you think about Stoicism and its impact on OCD recovery? Ever heard of people using philosophy to overcome OCD? The How would I describe this? The Sure, I think there are absolutely elements of working on cutting out compulsions across the board in life that you could look at stoicism and say, oh, okay, this is useful. Because yeah, like this is one of the reasons I say we don't want to get too caught up on like labels like OCD and whatever, because somebody was speaking to me the other day about how you can see so much in yeah how okay, maybe I'll phrase it this way. The one thing I'd watch out for is the idea of like, I'm going to use stoicism or use philosophy to overcome OCD. But instead, using philosophy to live a good life. I'd approach it that way. That these things are supports for doing the actions we want to do in life, while interacting with the fears that can come up, like the fear of death. So yeah, I'd shape it that way. Devon, how would you approach somatic OCD? People who are aware of their blinking or breathing. You could say to do values, but doing them at the same time as when you are internalized so much seems difficult. But so it's there's a couple things there. So one, somatic OCD involves a lot of checking and judging. So if somebody is running into that, I would always suggest they start looking at the checking and judging and controlling they're doing throughout life. And looking at the somatic stuff is kind of the natural outcome. So the brain's gone, oh, but you controlled this and you controlled this and you control this uncertainty, so we've got to control this uncertainty. So always think like the thing that's troubling us the most, it's the outcome of all of the compulsions we've been practicing. So it may not be the best place to start, because you're going to find that really difficult, especially if you're still doing all of the other checking and controlling. So often when it comes to the somatic symptoms, I might say, so yeah, like, do whatever you want to do. Like that's not necessarily the place to start, because you're just going to get frustrated. You're just going to get into more controlling, and the brain's going to be like, yeah, we should control problems. And that's going to go, what if your blinking is a problem? And then go, but you said we should control problems. And so it'll just like make the knot tighter. So actually at first with a lot of the physical stuff, stuttering, tics, focusing on physical sensations, things like that. What if it wasn't a problem to fix? What if we could start looking at just more generally the checking and controlling that's going on? And so looking at the logic that the brain learned to do that with, but also seeing that internalization. Yeah, it's also useful to look at that as we've been talking about, like being out in the real world is useful. So how is the brain learning to internalize? And again, often we've liked the internalization at different times, right? Like social situations is a great one. If we're constantly thinking about what the other people are thinking or thinking about what we're doing, etc., all of that internalizing is showing the brain, oh, like internalizing is a thing we do. So yeah, I would look very broadly. And so you see there, if you want to be internalizing less, what would be an easy way to start gently doing that around things that aren't as stressful? Ches, you said, what to do when it comes to thoughts that aren't true but feel real? For example, feeling someone is watching me in my own house, but I logically know it's not true. Yet my body feels it is and gets anxiety. So I find the like wrestling with, like it's not true, but it feels real. Like the idea that there are like things can feel real, and some things are not real. It helped me much more to see like all of the stuff in our head is just stuff in our heads. So that like could be part of it. Because if right now it's tripping you up that it feels real, but seeing that, well, like anything can feel real. It's a feeling, and being able to like, because especially if there are times where you go, oh, I know that's not real, that actually gets you into the trap. because the brain is basically saying, oh, well, like this checking and judging determines whether you're going to do compulsions or not. And it just wants the compulsion. So if giving you a real feeling gets you to do compulsions, then it's going to be a real feeling. So then it's about having real feelings and not doing those compulsions. So if you're doing stuff in your house because it seems like people are watching you, then what if you didn't do that stuff? And so there's a video on my YouTube channel too on paranoia. And that's, yeah, because I used to have all sorts of compulsions I would do in my house because I knew I was being watched. It's like I am being watched, and so like I had all sorts of rituals to, like, you know, if I was going to take out my wallet, I could only do it in the places where I wasn't being watched and things like that. So yeah, there's a whole video on that on my YouTube channel. Yeah, if you look up, I think, yeah, if you go on my channel and search for paranoia, it'll come up. Isabel, oh, congratulations on feeling feelings and not enjoying that. Or you asked, how tall am I? Oh, you'll have to sit with that uncertainty. I'm tall enough. See, I'm like that tall. I'm as tall as that dome back there. Jesse said, also sick of feeling anxiety because I just want a peaceful body so I can do the things you want to do. I want to do. Nah, that's what creates the anxiety. We have bodies that have feelings, and we can do the things we want to do. Stefan said, what are your thoughts on relapse? I beat myself up for being so mentally healthy after struggling for years and then dropping healthy behaviors and struggling again. How would you approach this? Yeah, actually dropping the idea of relapse, because you see it's actually just like I was talking about earlier, the idea of problem solving and problem fixing. So much of struggling with our mental health is just this problem solving monster in our heads going, that's a problem, fix it. And then we try to fix it. Or like that, you know, sensation in our body is a problem. And we're like, oh, I got to fix it. And we can't. And it really helped me to see that as part of that, I would relapse on purpose. Although I didn't really see it as on purpose. I described it as this amazing self-sabotaging streak that the brain has and that I would engage with because I was so hooked on solving problems. So I didn't know how to let things go well. I always needed to mess things up so I could fix it and then feel good about, oh, I fixed it, and get reassurance from that. And that's why it's really useful to ditch relapse, but also ditch the idea of recovery, because if we have to fix this problem and we make the problem necessary for success, then we're always going to need more problems. We just end up on this cycle of like, oh, I fixed this problem, that's so good, I'm so healthy. And then the brain goes, oh, like, do you like that? Do you like fixing that problem and feeling good about it? Okay, here's a bigger one. Go fix that. You're gonna feel so good after you fix that. And then it just goes and goes and goes. So we end up chasing that relief, that high of recovery, but it just creates your typical addiction loop. And then we keep going back to the problem so we can keep on solving it. So yeah, I would drop. And you've heard me say this before, making compulsions okay. Because as long as compulsions are bad and fixing them is good, we'll keep doing compulsions so we can try to keep fixing them. Okay, no, now I've just gotten to, thank you everybody for pointing out that the chat was continuing. I could not see any of the questions down to now. Oh, but thank you people for jumping in. I'm just getting there now. Thank you everyone for the tests. I appreciate it. There seems to be something wrong with the live chat, but I can flip to other types of chat. There might be some questions that I miss because there's kind of like chat sorting that YouTube can do. So I'm reading what's called top chat instead of live chat. Marlos, he said, I did the first step of exposure for my biggest compulsion. I want to thank you for getting my brain in the right direction and give me confidence in following my heart. Oh, I hope, yeah. You're the one doing all of the work, so enjoy following your heart. Moral. So what's the difference between assurance and reassurance? I assume like assurance is like when you buy it new from the store, and then reassurance is if you get it at like a secondhand clothing store. Yeah, it's like a new T-shirt and a reused T-shirt. Although actually I say the analogy doesn't work well because I like going to secondhand clothing stores. Secondhand clothing stores are great for the environment, whereas reassurance is bad for the environment. Aaron said, I have body dysmorphia, and it's mainly with my skin because of acne. Whenever I think of acne, I can feel physical sensations, and then they eventually turn into zits and dry skin. When I don't think, I don't get any acne, and my skin actually heals up. It's really weird. Oh, no, not at all. You see how it works. Feeling like I can't accept myself because of the scars. What do I do about physical sensations? Actually, so physical sensations really help me to see it doesn't matter if it's mental discomfort, emotional discomfort, or physical discomfort. The brain will use whichever one gets us into compulsions. And also you see there, it's going to use whichever one gets us like worrying about things that we're afraid of. So if thinking about acne and scars gets you thinking about what other people are thinking and wanting to control that, then it's very natural that what the brain is going to throw up are the physical sensations. And so this work on accepting and allowing unwanted, uncomfortable experiences, it's really important to see it's across the board, and seeing you can, just as you can have an intrusive thought, you can have an intrusive physical sensation, right? Something we experience and go, that shouldn't be there. Can it be there? Can it be okay for it to be there and not do anything with it? And so an exercise you can use to start exploring stuff like this, on my channel, there's a video explaining it, which is called sensory motor psychosomatic busting exercise number 1, I think is the title. But then there's also a curiosity meditation, which is the video, the meditation that goes along with it. And that's a meditation exercise to sit and not move. Because what's going to happen if you sit down to meditate and you don't move? And this is even like if you just sit down and you're like, oh, I better get a comfortable seat before I start meditating. No. What happens if you don't move while you're meditating? You're going to start to notice some physical discomfort. And the meditation practice is about starting to explore how do we interact differently with physical discomfort. And so it's really useful to start learning that, not with the thing that troubles us the most, but with some physical discomfort that we can bring up. And you'll start to learn some interesting things about physical discomfort. Anna said, geometry homework makes me anxious because it almost has to be perfect. Yeah. So I start thinking I'll mess up and end up messing it up. I think redoing it is a compulsion, but I can't leave it like that. It used to be fun, but now it's just suffering. Yeah, so what would make it easy? One of the things to look at there too is like, what are you afraid of if you get things wrong, if you mess it up? And again, this is the paradox of it. When we're like, oh no, I can't mess it up, I've got to get it right, we do mess it up. And so it's about learning how to make it easy. One way I often think of it, the way it feels is like learning how to catch a bubble. Because if we grab it, we're going to pop it. We're like, I got to get it right. Oh no, and then we lost it. But also if we're like, oh, it's suffering, I'm not going to touch it because I'll mess it up, then it just drops and it also pops. But if we can gently catch it and let it rest and let it be easy, then it'll stick around for a bit. But maybe it'll pop, maybe it won't. Yeah, what are you trying to get by getting geometry right? Aaron said, can you also explain judging and how we do it? One of the things to look at with judging is so there's a video on my channel called The Anatomy of a Compulsion. And what it'll point out, I'm almost going to sneeze. What it'll point out is that beliefs. So, because our beliefs, judging is this incredible label maker, categorizer we have in our head that we're entering into these situations and trying to put things in little boxes. Those little boxes, though, and those labels we like to stick in on things are very much dependent on our beliefs. Like, for example, if we have a belief that we shouldn't have bad thoughts or we shouldn't have wrong physical sensations, then of course we're constantly going to be checking for bad thoughts, checking for wrong physical sensations, and judging physical sensations. Oh, that one's good, it's okay. Oh no, that feels right, it's fine. Oh no, that one's maybe almost bad, I better keep checking. And so as long as we have a belief that we should categorize these things, and then we're going to be doing that compulsion to check and judge. And so it's important to go after both. We both want to stop doing that categorizing and label making. And so there's, like on the toolkit store, there's a non-judgment workout. So I find it useful to spread it over 4 weeks. And it's about learning the skills, first, of how we judge and what we judge, and then how to cut it out. But you've also got to go after the beliefs. Because if you hold on to the belief that I can't have wrong physical sensations, but then you try to cut out the judging, you're going to be really scared, because like, what if I am having wrong physical sensations? And so the beliefs always have to go too, and really thinking about what would be more useful beliefs. George Panzer. She said, one of my old friends has started to develop OCD over the last few years. I saw her yesterday and she struggles to leave the house due to a variety of rituals. I tried to explain the mechanics behind what is going on, but she doesn't have any insight at the moment. She also seems resistant to seeing a therapist. Have you got any tips to help her other than being kind? It's very difficult to make somebody else do something. It easily gets us into lots of controlling compulsions. So being kind is, a great one. Sharing, I always suggest to people two things. One, so first of all, making sure you're taking care of your mental health. Because like I mentioned, getting into that controlling, because you're seeing somebody do something, you know what's going to happen. It's not going to magically get better. It's going to get worse as long as they keep doing those compulsions. You're like, I want to prevent that. I want to control that. So yeah, taking care of your mental health is going to be important here. And I always ask people to consider, how could somebody get you to change something when you're convinced that their suggestions are dangerous and wrong? Because we both then understand the difficulty of it, but sometimes that does bring up for us an understanding of what we could share that we would find useful if and when we are in a similar situation. Khaled said, I started reading your book and it's amazing. Thank you. Thank you for reading. It opened my eyes on so many compulsions I'm doing to avoid anxiety and panic. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you're finding it useful. Yeah, if you ever have any questions as you're doing the exercises, absolutely feel free to send them over on social media or post them in the comments down below. David Webb says, good day everybody from Australia. Thank you, David. Kagemusha said, I wanted to ask you whether you think adolescent marijuana alcohol use / alcohol use and MDMA use in my university years is the cause of my OCD right now, causing cognitive deficits in my brain. I'm just looking down below. Joy Panzer is sharing all of the when they did drugs and how they did them. Isabel's pointing out, yeah, that's reassurance. Yeah, so Kagemusha, as Isabel pointed out about the reassurance, I would actually look at OCD as, it is actually compulsions like checking, was something in the past the cause of it? That's a very common OCD pattern of did this contamination cause this problem. And it's very easy to get hooked on that and trying to get certainty about it. But yeah, that's a practice. That's being practiced right now. And so being able to say, okay, like, what do you want to give your time and energy to when an uncertainty comes up like that? Because what difference would it make? You could blame a million different things. And I get messages from people all the time asking, like, did this thing cause OCD? Did this thing? The causes of OCD are as far as everybody is, how would I say, based on what people ask for reassurance about, pretty much everything apparently can cause OCD. But I find it much more useful to see that it's a practice in the present, and you can change that. Anshul said, how to differentiate between checking and exploring something. When it's about seeing what's, so first I use what I call a bias to action. So I'm going to take action. If it's not something that's going to lead to action, so right away I'd be like, that's a red flag. Like, why am I going to spend time on this if it's not going to lead to anything? And so then, because then I'm just trying to chase certainty. So I look at, what am I going to do? Because that's going to show me what I need to explore to go where I want to go. So that's what I would look at. If it's for fun, so if it's just saying like, hey, I'm gonna go to a museum or something like that, and I just want to learn about things I don't know about. But again, like being able to do that very intentionally, like, hey, I'm going to take, just go on an adventure today. I don't have to do anything. I'm gonna learn about all sorts of things I don't know about, and just enjoy that. And so, yeah, it's kind of looking for that. Like, am I just doing this for fun? Well, I could do this, but do I want to be spending this time right now going in some other direction where later I'm going to be like, oh, why didn't I go and accomplish this thing? Then it's going to be useful to see what's in that direction. But then also one thing I like to do is setting time limits on things. Because say right now, like traveling a lot, it could be very easy, and a lot of people do this, like just spend hours and hours and days, weeks, like trying to plan the best, like going to the best place and the best route and the best times and things like that. And yeah, you could explore that forever. And you could say like, oh no, but that's useful to me. Like I'm gonna take action. But do you need to spend that much time on it? So I like to identify a set of values and set a time limit. And at the end of that time limit, I'm going to make the best choice based on those values, based on what I found in that time limit. And yeah, maybe there's some amazing thing I didn't find because I didn't search for another 10 hours, and I can handle that. Kagemusha, so you brought up something though here that could be useful. Okay, you said, but my OCD only came up after I stopped MDMA and cannabis. Have you considered that those were compulsions? So just like anybody, when they cut out a compulsion, the brain tries to get more compulsions. So yeah, it could be useful to consider. What if those were the compulsions? Especially if you were doing those to like chase a feeling, to control a feeling, then yeah, of course the brain went looking for other compulsions after. Timeout quadruple zero. So unsure how to stop ruminating. Could grounding exercises be compulsive? Yeah, I would see, like ruminating is a compulsion. So if we have to do another thing to stop ruminating, then you're going to notice the brain want to ruminate because like, oh yeah, like here, like we're ruminating, let's do grounding, let's ground ourselves. And then it becomes this thing. And so one of the things I always suggest to people with ruminating, I'm throwing up my hands right now, is because like ruminating is hard work. And so learning how to not do that free overtime work the brain's always pushing us to, and to drop that right from the start, but not just around things we consider ruminating like bad things, but also stuff we like to think about. Like the trip example I just mentioned there, is a good one. Like somebody, if they're planning a trip, might think about it constantly. Oh, we're gonna go here, and it's gonna be, oh, maybe we should do this, and oh, that'll be amazing. And it doesn't seem bad. It doesn't seem distressing. But I always warn people about that, because if you spend a whole bunch of time ruminating about good things before the trip, and then you go on the trip, and the brain's like, well, what are we gonna ruminate about now? Because like we've done all the planning. Then it's gonna start throwing up all sorts of intrusive thoughts and things like that to ruminate about, because we taught it to do that. But again, the brain doesn't see the difference between a good thing and a bad thing. It just sees, hey, you spend a lot of time in your head, so you're gonna love spending time in your head on this, and then it'll just throw up some even bigger uncertainty that we may find really distressing. So yeah, starting to learn how to not ruminate around stuff we like to think about. No, tomorrow. He said, when I am physically uncomfortable while meditating, anger is oddly the first emotion to show up. I can't last longer. This also applies to the curiosity meditation. So I would ask, like, yeah, why can't you last longer? Because I'm pretty sure you can. Rose said, how to stop fearing from a thought that scares you? I wouldn't stop trying to fear it. That's how it gets us into the compulsions. Like, oh, I've got to get rid of fear. Yeah, what if you can be afraid of it? But you also don't have to react to that fear and do a bunch of compulsions around it. Yeah, it might just be scary. Oh, Anna, you're welcome. Kagemushi, you're welcome. Yeah, okay. So the time limit is useful. Oh, Chaz, you said, it's hard not to judge feelings or thoughts as good or bad. Because deep down, I know when it's bad. Legs shaking from anxiety and my focus being off is bad and it sucks. How can I think of nothing? Well, no, like, I wouldn't look at thinking of nothing. How can you take the leg shaking and your focus being off and do things you want to do anyway? And so that's where values come in, and like I mentioned earlier to Erica, like making things easy. Because it really helped me say often, like, look, I'm just gonna be useless. I used to do things because I just knew my brain would be all over the place and I would be having a panic attack. I would write out the exact actions I was gonna do and then follow a note. And it would be like, get up from seat, walk to door, open cabinet, take out food, like whatever it would be. Yeah, because no, like the body, the brain, useless. I mean, they're good. They're good. I love them. Also, anything you can do to make it easy not to have to put them in charge, super useful. Kagemusha, yeah, it feels like I can't pursue normal things like intimate relationships while having OCD. Yeah, again, there you see, like that's a big compulsion. So yeah, it'll be useful, right? Not to listen to that. And one thing you can do is, yeah, identify some values around, like, what are the actions that build an intimate, healthy relationship, and then practice those actions. More, you said, after you cut out compulsions, do the beliefs that fuel the compulsions follow suit? Or do you also have to cut out those beliefs? I would say that the beliefs change from us taking action in a direction we want to go. And that they're gonna lag behind, but it's so we've got to show it what our new beliefs are. And with that, maybe we'll wrap things up soon. I believe it's time for lunch. Joshua, it's good to see you as well. I hope you are well. I think the chat is having issues again. I can see messages pop up and then disappear. Lewis, I said, you really helped me on my journey to recovery since early May. I'm so much better now. I recognize when I'm doing compulsions, even in my head. Oh, Lewis, congratulations. A cheers with morning coffee to you. Yo, you've been doing all of the work to explore, so, and make changes. So congratulations. Erica, yeah, you said, what's for lunch? I don't know. We have to go get lunch. But I do know I have a really good cookie downstairs. There's an incredible bakery, like one of the best bakeries I've ever uh, had the pleasure to eat at in the world, and it is so close. It's such a short walk away, so I'm enjoying that. So I know there's a cookie downstairs from that bakery, but I'll eat something else. We have to go get it though. It's probably a sandwich, a delicious sandwich. What are you gonna have for lunch? Kagemushi, yeah, he said, is pure OCD, mental OCD, much more difficult to treat than normal physical OCD? No, but also I'd watch it, because Kagemushi, you don't have pure OCD because you've explained a bunch of physical compulsions. So yeah, I think I still see people all the time talking about having pure OCD and mental compulsions, well, explaining physical compulsions, right? Like avoiding intimate relationships. That's a huge physical compulsion because you are physically not in the place you would like to be. And yeah, it's really useful, like checking for reassurance, avoiding intimate relationships. Yeah, those are big physical compulsions. Wesley, yeah, you said, what to do when OCD treatment conflicts with other therapy goals? If someone is disrespectful to me and I don't defend myself adequately in the moment, then my OCD goes haywire. So Wesley, you mentioned this in a comment recently. Did you see my response to that? Because yeah, I would say that's the same question. But also even looking at that idea, like the idea of defending yourself and then OCD going haywire. One of the things I would look at there, if you're seeing that there are needs and boundaries you want to articulate up front, how are you going to start to articulate those up front? Because that, like I would see the fixing, like I've got to fix what that person did, I would see as the same compulsion as that I've got to fix these physical sensations, like those are wrong. Like that's wrong, this is wrong, I've got to fix them. Like that's the same pattern. And so like I would see that chasing that fixing, like I've got to defend myself, like I've got to control that, is a pattern that's naturally going to create a lot of struggling. So there might be other ways of approaching that. I found it really helpful to say, I can't go back and fix something. So either, right? Like either I got ripped off and that was disrespectful, or I said something terrible and I need to go back and fix it. Really helped me to say, no, there's no redoing. So how do I start to change the way I do things up front? Isabel, we are still in Mexico. Yeah, and so Wesley, you said down below that you need to recontact the person to do the defending. That is 100% compulsion. Yeah, but this is the same question you asked on the other video. So I don't know, did you see the response there? And if you did, it could really help to see that asking the same question again is it part of the compulsions. Moro, he said, is there a speed you recommend working through your book? Because I'm moving slow as a snail, about a chapter every 2 weeks. No, because giving it time to do the exercises. Like if that's because, yeah, it's, you're taking those 2 weeks to do the exercises and really explore those changes. That's not a problem at all. Ches, yeah, you said you couldn't find the paranoia video. Maybe you search paranoid, because it's definitely in there. Yeah, maybe, yeah, variations of paranoid. I thought it was paranoid, but yeah, maybe it's paranoid. Like with a D at the end. I said, no, I'm scared I have paranoia. How can I overcome that? No, we already explained. It's oh, there you Oh, okay, Silent Spaces share. Yeah, it's called Paranoia and Being Watched. Thank you, Silent Spaces. Kagemusha, any chance I'll be in Thailand? There is a chance. There are a bunch of meditation retreats and meditation traditions I want to explore And there is a particular meditation tradition in Thailand that, yeah, I'd like to explore in the coming year, but we'll see. Oh, Wesley, yeah, I did see the comment. I just thought I would elaborate a bit. Yeah, because what you explained there is the exact same thing that was in your comment. That pressure, right, to I've got to control this, I've got to make sure, that's the pattern, right? That's the same pattern that gets us, oh, I've got to defend myself, right? The brain just go, oh, you got to do it again. Like you gotta go and fix this. And that's what OCD in many ways relies on. HCS Lore said, would you recommend CBD to someone with OCD? Is that to like make OCD worse? I don't. I would recommend cutting out compulsions. Kagemusha, Vipassana. No, actually, I've done Vipassana retreats before, but yeah, I wouldn't. So, um, Vipassana, yeah, is very popular. A lot of the popular Vipassana retreats that have and traditions that have really spread around the world are often associated with. Sometimes we have celebrations. Are often associated with Burma. And so, yeah, you can do Vipassana retreats in Thailand, but I'll be doing what's called Thai forest Buddhist tradition. Yeah, so a different variation. We'll spend some time with trees. Oh, scared the bird. And with that, maybe now is a good time to eat. Speaking of forests and lunch, shall we go and eat lunch? Let us. Oh, the birds are gathering over here because they're scared. Oh no, Josh, and it scared your dog too. I'm sorry. I can hear some other dogs in the area are also upset. It is good, yes. You never know when an explosion is going to go off, so it's important to work with it. But yeah, with that, everyone. Anna, yeah, have I tried mole? Of course. It is one of the most delicious things in the world. I've tried to have all the moles. Yeah, but mole is it's so delicious and so complex. I love like having a good mole. It's so interesting to have a sauce that is like a full meal. And it tastes like a full meal. Like you can get the spicy and the kind of burnt flavors and the sweet and all of the fruitiness and the chocolatiness that's in there. Mole is amazing. HCS, you said, what if a doctor prescribes CBD instead of an SSRI? Yeah, but in either case, taking SSRIs too are not the first line treatment for OCD. The quality standard for OCD treatment is therapy first. And that's because and there's a lot of research showing, yeah, like OCD, because you have to change behavior, you have to change ways of interacting with thoughts. So a lot of research shows that, yeah, doing monotherapy, like just taking a thing and not doing therapy is not as effective even as doing therapy. So yeah, I would say if somebody is just taking anything and they're not also doing therapy, I would just have a lot of questions. Like why, like research is quite clear that, yeah, you can take something and do therapy and that can be effective. And you can do therapy and that can be effective. But if you're just taking something, yeah, there's no particular reason that would be, like somebody could do that, but getting over OCD is going to involve making changes. All right, everybody, have a good day. Let's wrap things up there. I see some people just dropping in. Hello. We're just wrapping things up so we can go eat lunch, which is a really an important meal. And Isabel asking how to stay awake for the rest of the day vigorously. Maybe you will rest some. If I'm tired and I want to stay awake, I go for a walk and just be tired on the walk. Wesley said, I wanted clarity on how to distinguish between when it's a healthy desire for standing up for myself and when it's OCD. Yeah, so I wouldn't approach it that way. Like I think the question, I would approach things quite differently. And yeah, as Erica said, yeah, join us on the Discord. There's a fantastic community of wonderful people on the Discord exploring how do we, build skills to do the things we want to do in life. And yeah, if you want, and you can ask, yes, oh, Erica, great point. As Erica said, you can ask a mental fitness question anytime there. They don't just have to happen on Sunday. Oh, Joshie, thank you for the donuts. Donuts to you. And yeah, so if you need a link, an invite link to the mental fitness Discord server, send me a message like on Instagram or by email, and then I'll hook you up there and we'll see you there. And so until next time, thank you everybody so much for stopping on by. Erica and Kanya, thank you for the donations and the support. And everybody, I hope you have a wonderful weekend, whether you stay indoors or you go for a walk or you eat lunch, or hopefully you have some pozole. Like I think may we all be nourished as pozole does. Oh, Eric, thank you so much for the donation, the support. I really appreciate it. Thank you for joining us today. Everybody, thank you so much for all of the support and being here and sharing about what's happening in your brain. And so may we continue to take care of these weird squishy urge blobs. Oh no, Eric, thank you so much for the donation and the support and being part of the community. With that, everybody, much kindness to yourselves and compassion to your brains, and I'll see you soon.